Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the One Talk podcast. You have your host, Ryan McCarthy. And today we are joined by Jon Denton. Jon is a current YouTuber and he's built a channel that's close to 500,000 subscribers and that's done over 100 million views. Jon has been doing YouTube for quite a long time now, but he also started as a writer and video creator for the last 20 years. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the One Talk podcast. You're here with your host, Ryan McCarthy. And today we are joined by Jon Denton. Jon is currently a YouTuber with a channel close to 500,000 subscribers and over 100 million views. Jon's content has been mainly around music reviews and music reactions. But as recently, he's created another channel that focuses on personal development as well. And within today's episode, we touch a lot on Jon building his YouTube channel to get as successful as it has, but also we touch on a lot of life lessons around mindset, procrastination, challenges that you face along the journey of chasing your goals, limiting beliefs that also may come up along that journey, and so much more. There's so many cool insights within today's episode, and I can't wait for you all to check it out. In other news, if you could please leave this podcast a rating, it means so much in terms of helping this podcast grow and reaching a larger audience and getting the message out there. So if you're on YouTube, if you could please subscribe. If you're on Spotify or Apple, if you can leave a rating and follow as well, it goes so far more than you can imagine. So it's much appreciated. Just quickly, if you want the best nasal strips and mouth tape in the world, then get onto Breathe. Breathe have the most incredible nasal strips, the most incredible mouth tape. They don't come off when you run, they don't come off when you exercise. I usually use them for sleep, but they're so durable and they work excellent. It literally feels like I can smell colors when I wear the nasal strips. But a quick plug, make sure if you are wanting nasal strips or mouth tape, get onto Breathe. But without further ado, let's welcome Jon.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all. The marathon continue. Victory lap tonight, though. Victory lap tonight.
Welcome to the One Talk podcast with Ryan McCarthy.
The marathon continues. That's what you would say.
Welcome, Jon. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well, thank you, mate. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's really good to have you. I've been following your content for many years now, back in the Rock React days. I think my first ever piece of content I delved of yourself was the Join the Lucas Gucci Gang video. So all the way back.
Damn, yeah, that's like over 6 years ago now, I think. That's crazy.
Yeah. So now we're doing the podcast with you. I'm going to make sure I actually reply to you talking because I'm used to just watching you and digesting the information. But having you on today's podcast, man, like I've seen that you've been doing writing and video creating for 20 years now, and you've recently surpassed 100 million views and you got close to 500,000 subscribers. But I know there would be a journey to get to where you've gotten to today. So I'd love to hear for yourself, like what was the main purpose for coming on YouTube in the first place back in the day?
So YouTube is a funny one. So I always wanted to be, if we're going all the way back, might as well start back there. From about the age of 13, all I wanted to do was write for a video games magazine. I just loved them. I used to spend all my pocket money, all my allowance on video game magazines and some games as well, obviously. And yeah, just everything about them, the writing, the way the magazines were put together, that to me just seemed like a dream job, an almost impossible job. I couldn't possibly understand how you'd even get a job like that. It was basically before the internet, when I was a teenager. And then I was fortunate enough, after going to uni and then doing some normal jobs for a little while, to apply for a job on a games magazine, which was about 30, 40 minutes away from where I lived. And getting that job on it as a multi-format games magazine here in the UK. So I sort of managed to get into that world at 22 years old, quite young, terrible pay, like below minimum wage pay, awful paying job. But it's sort of from then, my journey into, it didn't used to be called content back then, but my journey into the world of looking at pieces of media, spending time with them, and then sharing my thoughts on them has always been there. But obviously I started in print media, and even as I started in print, it was pretty clear that the writing was on the wall for print. So, sales were going down month after month, year after year. And when I first started going to press events at the very beginning, it was all the other people who worked on all the other magazines from around the country and sometimes around the world. And then within a year or two, it was all people who worked on websites, and then fewer and fewer people who worked on magazines, or the people who used to work on the magazines now worked on websites. And as we know, internet kind of killed print, and as such, I ended up on these magazines that were just doing less and less sales every single month, while websites like IGN and GameSpot and these other gaming websites went huge and were doing millions and millions of impressions every week, really. And as such, eventually I had to leave print media, and I ended up going into marketing consulting and some other things, freelance, that weren't directly working for magazines. And then when I was working in marketing consulting for Monster Energy, we took a meeting with some YouTubers with the idea of maybe sponsoring them and working with them, video gaming YouTubers. And at the time, God, this was probably about 12 years ago, maybe a little less, I'm not 100% sure. At the time, YouTube to me was like a place where you went and watched like old clips of shows from the 90s or just funny random things that people had found. I was too old to have kind of understood and seen the growth of the YouTuber, like the vlogger. There's a massive vlogging culture here in the UK. People like KSI, obviously, who's gone on to do tremendous things, and Zoella. There's a sort of group of people here in the UK that did really well, but they were appealing to a much younger generation than me. But one of these meetings was with a guy called Ali A, who's a very, very famous YouTuber now. I think he's got over 20 million subscribers, doing Call of Duty, doing Fortnite. And at the time, he was a 19-year-old kid, and he had just hit 1 million subscribers on his channel. And it was just so fascinating speaking to him and his manager, who's the same guy who's gone on to like promote the boxing matches and everything that's happened since, and just seeing what this world was of YouTube and how little I knew about it in terms of being a YouTuber and having an audience to yourself and subscribers and ad revenue and all these sorts of things. And as I was sitting there in this meeting, I was supposed to be paying attention for how we could sponsor him or how we could work with him for Monster. But my mind was just ticking like, okay, I missed the boat before on online, but I feel like in terms of YouTube, there's still time. There's still time. I could potentially go and do something here on YouTube and try and do what I was doing for years as like a gaming writer, gaming critic, and do it on YouTube, because what these young guys were doing was slightly different. So I immediately tried that. I tried it for about 100 videos. Didn't really get anywhere, but learned a hell of a lot. Got to like 1,000 subscribers. Put in so much work, but eventually got to the point where it was like, I don't know if I can keep putting in this amount of work, got, wife and kids, plus a normal job, to not really get anywhere. But it was still there in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something on YouTube. So fast forward about 2 years from then, and a reaction video sort of appeared in my life. It was a guy in a car. It's called You, and he was reacting to Rage Against the Machine's first album while in his car driving to work. And that video, I actually don't know if it's there anymore on YouTube, but it got over 1 million views in the end. Someone shared it with me on Twitter, or shared it on Twitter, and I clicked on it. And I thought it was a brilliant video. I love Rage Against the Machine anyway. And that started bringing up into my recommendations on YouTube, Lost in Vegas, who two guys from America who do hip-hop reactions, but were also reacting to loads of the metal music that I'd grown up loving. And so they were doing like Metallica, Rage Against the Machine again, Megadeth, some others. And yeah, I thought the videos were amazing. They were really articulate, intelligent guys as well. They're really getting the music. And there's a reason that they've got over 1 million subscribers now. They're still going. And I just had the idea of maybe you could reverse engineer that. They were like Black American guys who are from a hip hop background reacting to metal. Well, potentially could it be white English guys doing the opposite for hip hop? I think probably. So I suggested it to my mate, Simon, who we'd known each other for years from the games magazines and then moved to separate parts of the country. And we thought, well, let's just try it. It took a couple of months to organize, and then I eventually went to where he was, about an hour and a half away from where I live. He already had a camera, green screen, lights, all these sorts of things. And we just filmed a bunch of videos reacting to music. And I had an idea in my mind based on what Lost in Vegas had done and how many views they got from reacting to the artist Logic, whose fan base was crazy at the time, insane. So so rabid, so passionate. I thought, well, if we do some Logic tracks, maybe some of those fans that have been supporting Lost in Vegas and a bunch of the other channels that were around at the time would come and watch our videos. So that was, I think, the second or third video that we put out on this channel, Rock Reacts. And overnight, it got like 4,000 views and a bunch of subscribers coming through, which for a channel with no subscribers and no views is pretty unheard of, really. And it just went from there. All the Logic fans said, okay, react to this song next. And then someone were going, oh, you need to check out J. Cole, you need to check out Kendrick Lamar, you need to check out this. That channel went from 0 to 100,000 subscribers in 4 months. And then we were just off to the races at that point. And not really looked back from there. Me and Simon went our separate ways for various reasons in about 2020. And then I just built the whole thing back up on my own channel. And yeah, like I say, just shy of 500K and just crossed 100 million views now. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Been an amazing ride, and it's been really cool to see, and it's very inspiring as well, as I'd imagine for other content creators wanting to do something similar in their own world, because seeing someone like yourself who created Rock Reacts with Sam and then being able to pivot on yourself as well, I can imagine that it would have been very fearful, or some limiting beliefs would have came up for yourself in that process. And I believe I saw a post as well where you did talk about you had fear when you had to go on your own and start your own channel. Can you talk to us a bit about that and how you overcame that fear to really pivot?
Yeah, so it came to the point where I won't go into details, but the channel just kind of had to end. We'd fallen out and it just wasn't going to happen anymore. But at that point, I think Rock Reacts was just shy of 300,000 subscribers. It had a Patreon and it wasn't our full-time jobs, but at the same time, it was clear that it was becoming a business. But and then my channel itself, the one that I'm still on now, I think maybe had like 5 or 6,000 subscribers, because I've done a couple of videos on the side of Rock Reacts and some people have come over. So it was still a very small channel. And yeah, I was terrified, to start again. Had so many messages, so many comments saying that you've absolutely, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay, cool. That I completely fucked it, and I was going to regret this decision, and I've ruined any chance. You only get like one shot at YouTube. All of these sorts of comments from people who've never done anything on YouTube, by the way. But you think they might be right. They might have been right at the same time, but there was also the case where I just felt like I had to try. We built it up so far, it'd been so crazy, and I knew that there were at least some people who would come over and support new videos if I kept going on my own. But I definitely had limiting beliefs of whether or not I could sustain the videos just me without the dynamic of us two talking together, and whether or not that it was ever me that people were clicking on, or if it was just a bunch of different stuff that you have in your mind whenever you're starting anything like this. But fortunately, it took a lot longer, but fortunately the views started to come and the comments started to direct me in a slightly different direction to Rock Reacts, heading a bit more into artists like Frank Ocean and The Weeknd. And then those fans found the videos, latched onto them, and came along for the journey. And yeah, it's probably within a year that I managed to get it back up to 100,000 subs, I think. I'd have to go and check the numbers. But it was clear probably after, 4 or 5 months, that when I started doing the Weeknd videos, that people were going to watch these videos. I didn't know if I was going to be able to sustain it forever, but we did that. I started a Patreon for myself, and some people started to jump on and pay for that. And I was like, okay, there's something here that I can continue to do this just on my own and see if I can build it on my own. And then 2020 happened, and my job with Monster, which was a consultancy freelance job, it wasn't a full-time job, came to an end about a month before COVID hit. At the same time, my channel was just starting to pick up pace, and I knew The Weeknd's new album, After Hours, at the time was just about to come out, which I knew was going to do a lot of views on the channel. And it all kind of happened all at once, and I said, okay, I'm going to go all in, and I'm going to try and go full-time on YouTube. It's like February 2020, and then a month later, everything locks down. Even if I hadn't stopped my job with Monster, they got rid of all the freelancers when everybody here in the UK went on furlough, or all the businesses shut down. So yeah, just timing and a bit of happenstance and a bit of serendipity that I decided to go all in. And then I think that plus the fact that I could no longer go back to Monster, plus the lockdown thing, plus everything, was just like, okay, I just need to work myself to the bone, effectively over this period to really make this thing work. So I was doing, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't advocate this now, and I don't do it now, but I was doing, 12 to 15-hour days, 6 days a week, just to really hammer out this work. I was doing a full album every single day at one point, editing it all myself. Far too much work, but sometimes you just need that kind of activation energy at the beginning of a project that you really believe in, where you probably got to work a bit too hard, ride the line of burnout, and then once you're kind of in orbit, I mean, that phrase comes from launching a space rocket. Once you're in orbit and you're out there, you can wind it down a lot more and work far less, hopefully, which is what I'm actually trying to do now, trying to do videos that do more views for less actual time spent working every single day. But yeah, there's a lot of fear. Once you're in orbit, you can, you don't have to work so incredibly hard. You kind of got things off the ground and you can find a better cadence. But yeah, at the beginning, I beat my limiting beliefs and fear just by working incredibly hard, and sort of tactically at the beginning.
That's great though, because it's like living evidence of being able to back yourself and being able to push far enough into something until you do get like physical evidence that it actually is happening. Because I feel like when you first start something, it is very hard to back yourself when you don't have much evidence. But if you just go after it anyway, and then eventually you will see the evidence, that's when the reward comes. Because I remember when I first started this podcast myself, I had a co-host for the first, I believe, 5 episodes. And he left after 5 episodes. And I became at this moment where I was like, I'm gonna have to do this by myself. And I had a lot of my own limiting beliefs come up. But it was just that knowing of just do it anyway and see what happens. Along the journey, you gain experience, you gain wisdom, and you start getting evidence to actually working. And then after that, mixed with all the hard work, is when you get into that orbit like you were talking about before.
Yeah, I believe so. And there is just a point, I think, in everything that I've done, whether it was the work that I was doing to try and get a job on a games magazine where I was just writing on video game forums after, working a full day and then sitting there in the evening working. These were things that I was very passionate about. So it definitely felt like work because it was very tiring. But at the same time, it wasn't just grinding against a wall on something that I hated. I mean, I just don't think any human can really sustain that for any period of time, because eventually you just like, this is just not worth it. But I'm definitely, it's a funny one because you get stuck between two camps a little bit. I'm definitely not a proponent of just ridiculous grind set mentality, and just the fact that you have to just work, no sleep, all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, I don't know anybody who's managed to do anything of any consequence in business or in content or anything really without a sort of an unusual amount of hard work, at least for a period of time. So the amount of expertise you gain, the amount that you learn, like you were saying, during that period as well, even if it doesn't necessarily work out the first time. Like I made 100 videos on gaming, like full reviews, stuff where I was going out doing like a magazine show and filming different sections out of the house, interviews. Like I was working really, really hard on it. And, you put a video out and get 21 views or maybe 100 views would be a good one at a time. And it was a little bit dispiriting, but there were 2 things happening. One, I was learning a lot on my own and intuiting a lot about YouTube in terms of how the back end worked, in terms of how analytics worked and stuff like that. But what I wasn't doing is actually tactically working out what's the words I'm trying to look for? There wasn't really the information out there like there is now on how to create good hooks, good thumbnails, good titles, how to position your videos, how you should not jump from subject to subject massively on YouTube. There was loads of stuff about how to rank tutorial videos on search, like how to fix a hole in your wall and stuff like that. Loads of videos about how to do that. Not so much how to do kind of entertainment content and hit the recommended algorithm, which is what I would have needed for my gaming channel back then. Loads more information out there about that now, which is great. So had I been able to use that information and be a bit more tactical with the gaming channel, maybe it would have worked. But regardless, because of the amount of effort I put in and the amount that I learned just through doing it, just through that experience, even though it didn't work then, that allowed us, because Simon also had understanding of YouTube from tons of the wrestling stuff that he'd done, that allowed us when Rock Reacts started, not only could we sort of start with pace, understood the general processes of what to do, that when it started to get views and started to turn the corner, which happened quite quickly, we kind of already knew what to do, like how to position the videos a bit better, like how to interact, how to what sort of thumbnails to do, just through the experience of doing it before, even though that stuff didn't work that well. So the amount of experience you gain from quote unquote failure, I mean, it wasn't failure because we didn't give up, but it's still invaluable, even though it can be quite dispiriting at the time.
100%. And especially as a content creator like yourself, I put in all those years of, backing yourself and hustling. There's a lot of people on the outside could look like, you got lucky per se, because I hear a lot of people say that about people who are on social media, but I believe it's more so when preparation meets opportunity. That's what luck is. Like, you prepared yourself for these moments, for the amount of work you've put in beforehand.
Yeah, I think luck's a funny one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I mean, there is an element of it, definitely, luck, timing, and then you can even extrapolate it further than that, like the fact that I'd known a guy who went on to do some YouTube stuff anyway, and we'd been friends, and so I had somebody, I didn't have a camera or lights, and then I was born in England. You can keep going, but further and further back to the sort of advantages that you have in your life, or even the disadvantages you've had in your life. I love gaming so much because I got bullied a lot at school, so I used to disappear into gaming and became completely obsessed. That's why I bought all the gaming magazines. So that knowledge came from unfortunate circumstances, really. But at the same time, you're completely right. I think by putting in work and a lot of study and not being afraid to start and just try things and put yourself out there, you're just constantly increasing your luck surface area. So when an opportunity does come, you've got two things. You've got the ability to then take advantage of it because you've been studying, you've been working, you've been trying things, but also you have the kind of mentality to deal with that luck, to accept it as it comes in. Because if an opportunity came in when you hadn't done any work in the first place, you might not even see it. You're like reticular activation system may not have even seen your focus may not have actually seen that opportunity come in. You can see that when like you see those stories of people who are like with the boys and they're in a nightclub or something, and then there's clearly like everyone else can see that this girl's interested in the guy, but he's just like completely oblivious to it, and then he comes back to the group and everyone's like, no, what have you done? But he just wasn't like in the right mental space at that moment for that thing to happen. And that you can kind of see that everywhere in life, right? So when you never put yourself out there or never try anything, you're just decreasing that luck surface area to the point where when these opportunities do come, you're not ready, and you may not even see them. And there's probably opportunities that are happening for all of us all the time that we're not seeing just because we haven't prepared in that space. But that's fine. We're on the path that we're on. But yeah, that's one of the reasons to try even without the knowledge that it's going to succeed, just to push yourself out there, because you're always increasing your luck surface area by doing that. I mean, I met The Weeknd because I DM'd him and a bunch of other stuff happened, but I've also got a laundry list of other artists, celebrities, creators that I've DM'd and had, no interaction with. Absolutely. So it's not just like I took one shot and it just happened to work. There's so many other times where it hasn't worked, but by putting yourself out there, you're just increasing that surface area, like I say, and then you're ready when something happens to act.
100%. I really liked how you gave two sides of that as well to luck, because it's so true, especially on the back of what you're talking about there. Because like if I never started a podcast, if I never put in so many hours, then I wouldn't have been able to have a conversation with you. And you're someone whose content I've been indulging in for like the last 5 or 6 years. But it's by putting yourself out there and backing yourself and following something, you open up the opportunity window so you can actually see it more. Because
Correct,
like you said,
yeah.
the less preparation you do, the less times you'll see that window open.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially with that hustling concept as well. I want to touch on that because it's a very interesting conversation to find, because especially with business, especially whether it's going on YouTube, whether it's whatever industry people are in, you do have to have moments where you go balls to the wall and just go as hard as you can. But then it's not losing your passion or purpose in the process of doing that. So I find it is that fine line of having a balance in between. Like, how is that related to you in your life with the work that you do by working as hard as you can to get good content out there, to really craft your skills, but also not losing your passion in the process?
Yeah, it's always a difficult balance, right? And sometimes you might find that you're super passionate about a subject that you want to talk about or you want to cover, and then once you get into it, you realize it not necessarily even that you've lost your passion, but you've not necessarily got the passion to do this around it. So I had that. I started some football content. I've always been a huge football fan, still am, and consumed a lot of football content. So I thought I'd try it myself. And within a few months, it dawned on me that I wasn't really prepared to put in the level of work that the big football content creators do. You know, live streaming, match watch-alongs every single weekend. Obviously, there's stuff like that I never really thought about. Oh, if I do football content, that means I've got to work every single weekend as well because football's on a weekend. Little things like that that you don't necessarily know before you start. But on the same time, when it comes to music and gaming, the other stuff that I cover, and now like the personal development stuff that I'm fascinated by now, which I'm moving into, in terms of maintaining that passion, it's just about trying to make sure that you're doing enough content that you actually would do for free. So the content that you would have written about when you were a teenager on a forum like I did, or you would just make YouTube videos about for yourself or whatever it is, there comes a point as a creator when if it does become your job or even like a side business that is making you money, that you feel like, okay, I've got to do this video because it's going to get views, or I've got to do this video because so many people are talking about this trending topic, or so many people in my comments are asking for it. And I've fallen into that trap a bunch of times where I started to make video after video that wasn't necessarily aligned with me, but I was doing it purely for views. And quickly, the audience can see through it. They can see, people can intuit stuff very quickly from how you are on camera, especially when your audience is a little bit older. I think my kids watch a lot of YouTube. Obviously, they're nearly 13 and 9, and I can see straight through some of their creators that they're basically in hell, still talking about Minecraft and stuff when they're well into they're pushing 30. Nothing wrong with Minecraft, but you can just see it in some of them. But the kids, they don't see it. They're just, they're just kids. But my audience is sort of people in their 20s mainly. The sort of younger skews around 18, and it pushes to about 34. And people of that age have been around long enough, can see straight through somebody who's lying's the wrong word, but has just lost their smile and has lost their passion. And I've had a few moments like that on YouTube, and then you see that in the comments all of a sudden, and the second that you continue down that path of inauthenticity, you're dead, I think, on YouTube. So much better to do a few videos that aren't necessarily going to do the views, but reignite that passion, the videos that you're really happy to have put out there. And obviously everything's relative. Like a bad video for me will get 10k views now, but if you were to tell me when I was doing gaming videos that I could get 10k views on a video, it would be like we go out for dinner. So yeah, everything's relative, and that's still a lot of people, a hell of a lot of people. But it's a difficult balance to, I think this is something that a lot of YouTubers and a lot of creators struggle with, because it's completely new to be this in a situation where the feedback and the financial rewards come from views and not necessarily from being aligned to what you want to do. You have it's not like you're on salary. It's not like you have any protection, like if you're a TV presenter or something like that. You are running your own show, you're running your own business, and you're at the mercy of algorithms and audience taste and a million different things that you can't control. So it's inevitable, I think, that almost anybody who gets any success in YouTube or creation overall falls into this trap at some point. And it's just about noticing it, maybe having someone else notice it for you. I don't think there are enough support structures for people in this space yet, just because it's new. And that's not to say that, these people who have been quite lucky and successful and suddenly need loads of support, like people who've been through real shit. But at the same time, it's a very, very strange job, and you see it over and over and over again. People quitting YouTube when they've got to a pretty high level, or people who are just, you can see it through the lens, they're suffering, and they're sort of suffering for their audience in a strange sort of way. So yeah, it's an odd one. Striking that balance is brand new to the world. Like, this is new. This is completely new. It's only getting even more insane with the vertical apps, with TikTok and Reels and things, because anybody who makes a lot of content on there knows that those algorithms change like the wind. So there's people on there with millions of followers, and then you look at their last 40 videos and they're getting like 800 views. There's no loyalty in that algorithm. There's a bit of loyalty in YouTube's algorithm. Like, it will back you, basically. It will try for you for a long time, even if you're not necessarily on fire at the moment or really going viral at the moment. It will still back you to a point. But those algorithms, I can't imagine if you've based a whole career on that and then it just goes, nah, you're not doing anything different. And it just goes, nah, not anymore. And you basically dead as quickly as you were alive. So, weird world, new. There's going to be a lot of burnt out, stressed out, frazzled creators, and it will become a much more common and spoke about issue in the same way that, we hear about musicians and celebrities now who've struggled with fame. And I think over time we've come to have a little bit of empathy and sympathy towards those people, even if they've been tremendously successful and, earned millions and had all the adoration in the world. And then you hear their stories on a podcast and you go, well, actually, for all that they've got, that also sounds terrible. And I think that we're going to get a lot more of those stories in the next 5 years coming from creators who have just been at the absolute mercy of audiences and algorithms and have no strategies for dealing with it, because it's all new, So yeah, long answer to the question, but it's definitely something that I think about a lot, something that I've been going through myself, especially 2023. There wasn't a lot of great music coming out, and my channel was covering music, and I was just stuck in between needing to make videos. I felt like the taste of the younger audience who was moving away from the type of hip hop that I loved into a type of music that I just didn't love. So I'm stuck in a place where I can either make videos saying that I don't like the music of the audience that wants to watch videos where people say they do like the music, or I do something terrible and pretend I like the music, which I would just never do. Can't do that. So yeah, it's difficult. It's like, what do I do? The audience doesn't want to watch videos about like boom bap or about the music that was massive in the early 2010s anymore. They want to watch videos about this new type of music, which sounds awful to me. So this happens. I'm sure there's a bunch of people, like I say, who've been making Minecraft videos or Fortnite videos, or the videos where they're like a group of mates doing silly challenges and everything's brightly colored, and then they get to like 28, 29, 31, 32, and they're like, oh my god, I just cannot do this anymore. I'm dying inside doing this, but I can't do anything else because this is my job and my career, and I've got to pay for this and this, got to pay for my team and all this. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of that over the next 5 to 10 years.
I think we will too, to be honest, because like if you think of fame within the last 10 years, like it's at the moment, it's as crazy as it's ever been before, because at the moment, you can literally go on your phone and see feedback within instants, like within seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback most of the time has got nothing to do with you. It's usually a projection of the person posting it. If it's a negative feedback, if it's more like a hate comment. But people having access to that, and then also getting addicted to reading comments and reading things about themselves or reading articles, I can only imagine what that could do to your own mental health.
Yeah, negative comments on the internet have been around since the 90s, but there's now a culture as well around, I think I heard it called hate farming yesterday, where people will make even content that is designed to be hateful around other people, and it gets a lot of engagement. You see it a ton on platforms like Twitter, or X as it's called now. So there's that. And then, yeah, if you've got a younger mind, and you're creating content, and then the brain is biased towards seeing negative things rather than positive. So you could have 10 positive comments and one negative, or even more than that in terms of the positives, and your brain will hang on the negative one. And I'm the same if I see it. YouTube does a strange thing where on your videos themselves, it will mark up the most up-liked comments, right? So on most people's videos, unless there's somebody that's done something controversial, a negative review, or they're a bit they like to stoke the flames of malcontent. They're that type of creator. But typically, most of the top 3, 4, 5 comments on any popular YouTuber's videos will be positive or like a meme joke or something like that. But in the back end of YouTube, it just has, when you've got like your views here and your latest video performance and whatnot, it has latest comments, and it will just want the latest 3 comments that are on your channel, regardless of what they are, right in front of your face. It's like, I don't actually want to see what some comment that I would never see, that nobody would ever see, that would be at the bottom of the comment pile on a YouTube video, disappeared into the void. But you open up your YouTube Studio app, I don't know, shouldn't do it, but at 7:30 in the morning when you first wake up, or in the middle of something stressful, and then somebody's like cutting to the core of your soul with a comment. Like someone just says you're a dickhead or whatever. It's pretty easy most of the time to just ignore that. But there'll be the odd one that manages to prod directly an insecurity that you've been carrying since you were a teenager, and that can fuck you up. I mean, I'm 41, and I will get caught sometimes with some of that stuff. And I don't get a huge amount of negative comments because it's just not really the nature of my channel to be provoking too much negativity anyway. But I do, like anybody, get plenty. But yeah, if I was 20 years younger, or if I was a teenager and that was happening, it could cause some serious damage. And yeah, again, I don't think there are enough coping strategies. I don't think there are enough support structures around that kind of thing, because I'm sure even kids who are doing TikToks and making content, so much easier to make content now than it was even 10 years ago, where you had to have like a camera and all sorts of things, or if you wanted to do gaming content, your capture card and whatnot. Now you just need a phone, which is technically true before, but it's actually really common now to just have a phone and make content. And if on the odd chance that you're 14 and you make a video and most of your videos get 9 views from a couple of mates at school, and then one just for some reason catches fire and gets like 200,000 views to all of these strangers all around the world, and it's something cringy that you and your mates were doing at year 9, 14 years old, and you suddenly got to deal with that. Like, imagine sitting in your bedroom, like you're not told your parents, and
Your phone's just
there
dinging,
needs to
dinging,
be.
dinging.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, me at my age could quite easily turn that off and just be like, fuck this. Or, you can rationalize it like we were doing before, like, oh, this is coming from, these people are saying this because of their own insecurities, or they're in a bad. But when you're a teenager, you can't, you're just probably taking it all in and believing it. Maybe they are a bit more, they're so literate with this sort of stuff that maybe they are a bit more resilient and kind of understand that that's part of the game a little bit more than I give them credit for. But I have to think that for a teenage mind, it is potentially very damaging and devastating. So I don't think we can fix it, but we just need better systems to help her, and better strategies, better stuff in school, I guess. I don't know.
More support networks for them,
Yeah.
more resources for them to go to. Because I could only, like with the line of content creation that you do, it's fine, because it must be hard to want to upload a video if you've done like a harsh critique on someone. Like if you personally just not like the song, like the song overall may be good, but you personally just might not be your taste. But uploading that person's fan base and hearing your critique could then put a sour taste in the comments, which could then, spiral a whole nother thing if you're not in the right mindset to, receive those comments. Like I find that would be challenging as well, because I saw when Lost in Vegas, they recently uploaded a video of Meet the Grahams and their reaction, and they didn't like the song at all, but the comment sections were just flaming them. It was really good to
Mm.
see the way that they responded to that, because you could definitely see they're in a space where they can take those type of comments. But I can imagine if you're not in the right mind frame, it'd be very hard to, really digest that, what people are saying about you.
Yeah, and even those guys who I believe they're similar age or even older than me, and obviously they've got each other, and they're experienced in the game as well. I'm sure even those guys will get caught sometimes. And you just sitting there like, "Fuck you!" Like, and the temptation to reply, which is obviously what most of these trolls want, and
Yeah.
it's just it's a road to nowhere doing that. But yeah, I mean, you're right about uploading a potentially negative review. Sometimes there's a song that comes out and you feel like everybody thinks it's shit. So, and then you listen to it yourself, you also think it's shit. So you kind of think that you're going to get the easy ride of it being shit and everybody thinking it's shit, and then you put it out, and actually the fans who love that artist come for you like, everywhere. I'm talking not just YouTube comments, every DM, everything that you put out, emails. I had Drake fans because I was siding more with Kendrick in the recent beef. I thought his tracks were better, his disses were better, and he won. Drake fans were finding me everywhere, like everywhere. Every YouTube video, old YouTube videos, DMs, my email, my business email inbox, like anywhere that you could possibly find somebody online. Yeah, it was that. So that was exhausting, to be honest, after a while, because it's like, okay, man, each person's only doing it once, but when you're consuming 100, 200 a day, yeah, it's just knackering, really. At that point, I was just like, I just don't care. I don't care anywhere near enough about this beef or who won for this level of vitriol to come back at me.
Yeah.
I mean, it really isn't something that I'm thinking about much beyond making the videos and chatting for 20 minutes online. But people take this stuff very seriously. I think, unfortunately, and this is something that's happened with celebrity for a long time, that people attach their own identity to the celebrity that they're a huge fan of or a stan. And so when you insult the song or the artist or the celebrity, they take it as a deep insult to themselves and their own identity and their own character. And this happens in football as well. People attach to players and managers particularly. And in actual fact, realistically, we know it's absolutely nothing to do with that person who's a fan. It's just about the artist. And even then, it's actually just about the song most of the time, not even the artist. But when people attach their identity to it, which is almost like a psychological condition, I guess, then I can actually understand why they get so upset, because they're in this strange condition that they're not able to separate the two things, so they're not speaking or acting rationally. So it makes total sense for them to be this vitriolic, because not only have you insulted their art, you've insulted them directly, the core of their character and identity. Now, when you see it like that, I understand it, but at the same time, it's they need to fix themselves. It's not up to us to fix them. But I'm pretty sure that's what's going on when it comes to that sort of stuff.
It makes sense. And I think that's a good self-awareness piece for people to take away as well. Like if you do see yourself getting, triggered or reactive when someone makes a critique against someone else, maybe it's a time for you to reflect within yourself to see if you actually tie in your own identity in with someone else. And if that's the case, then I think one of the best things you can do is begin your own self-discovery journey.
Yeah, anything like that does trigger you, and it's the same if I get a negative comment that does really trigger me and hits to that insecurity. The best thing that I can do in that situation is try and take 5 minutes to really reflect on what it is, and then it's almost like just a flash up with something that I need to work on. Maybe I need to speak to a therapist about, or really do some inner work to try and resolve what it is that has caused this particular comment to be so triggering. And again, if you find yourself backing a football manager or an artist or a celebrity or whoever it is that much, really to take a step back and try and figure out, maybe it was some moment that you found that person incredibly relatable and they felt like they were speaking directly to you, which is why you loved them so much. Some magical connection that you had with a song or something that they said or a performance or whatever it is. And that's a positive thing. That's why you became such a fan. But when it turns and you're getting insulted on their behalf, actually far more than they would be. They don't care if some random YouTuber says this stuff. It's water off a duck's back to them. That's just a moment to try and catch yourself and have think what's going on. And honestly, it may be because it's typically younger people. They may have never had the opportunity or the realization to start doing some inner work and realizing that the things that are triggering them are stuff from their past. Whether it's unresolved childhood trauma or whether it's something that's some sort of deep insecurity that they've had. It's all from childhood and teenage years, right? All of it. Even if it's not something that would traditionally be considered trauma, like something awful happening to you when you were a kid, like truly awful. Even something like being told by your parents at that moment can create a traumatic imprint in a very young child that the parents don't love him. And then that means when our reptile brain, when we're 6 years old and we think our parents don't love us, means that we're going to get exiled and we're going to die, basically. So, and then you just carry that with you through your whole life. And then that's why you should go to therapy and unravel some of that stuff, and looking at being able to sort of see the moment through an adult's brain and release it. That's kind of what most of therapy actually is. And it's amazing how much stuff that is quite often quite innocuous from our childhoods that happened, whether it was through school or parents or something else. I'm not talking about genuine awful trauma, abuse, etc. I'm just what would be considered everybody has at some point can end up informing your behavioral patterns all the way through life.
Like an example would be like a limiting belief as I'm not worthy.
Oh yeah. All of the limiting beliefs, all of the fear of failure, all of this sort of stuff is it's almost all from childhood. And fortunately, quite often relatively easy to resolve with some professional help. Like I resolved a bunch of my stuff around being bullied at school in 3 to 4 hours with a therapist. And I don't feel I used to have this. I'll get into it. I was bullied really badly, sort of mentally at school as teenage years, not physically. And then obviously I have kids now, and I would go and pick them up from school or drop them off at school. And as soon as I kind of entered the school gates, I would feel super uncomfortable, super self-conscious. I wouldn't want to talk to any of the other parents. And I just thought that that's because I couldn't be bothered to speak to them, which is partly true in some cases, because a lot of them aren't that interesting. But it was, I go into myself and become like a shell of myself. And within 20 minutes of talking to the therapist, it became clear that I kind of reverted to the 14-year-old version of myself, and then which was shy and head down and shoulders forward, and would stumble over my words and all these sorts of things. And the fact that it was in a school, that's the part that I hadn't pieced together myself, which is actually pretty obvious. It's because it's in a school, and that's where all of this stuff was happening to me day after day after day for years when I was a teenager. But now, actually, I'm at the time, 37-year-old man just going to pick up my kids. I'm actually older than a lot of the other parents that are there that have got younger kids. And why would you be scared? Nobody's going to come and abuse you and say horrible shit to you and laugh behind your back, all the stuff that happened. You're just going to do this. And realizing that was incredibly freeing, because it's obvious to an outsider probably, or it just seems weird that I'd even be reacting like that. But that's what was happening. I was going back into the 14-year-old version of myself. And you might see that with people that you're in relationships with, or people that you know. It's harder to see it in ourselves, that suddenly they go from what seems like themselves to almost like they're acting like a kid, or you can almost see them change in front of you. They look the same, but like something's changed, like everything's changed. And that's typically them being led by like a childhood part of themselves that's basically protecting them in the same way that it did when they were 6 or 12 or 15 or whatever. And it's almost impossible to speak as an adult or have an adult conversation with that childhood part, because they're not an adult in that case. So people need to unravel that stuff with help. And then it's just extremely freeing. And when you can understand that's kind of how the psyche works and how the brain works in this bizarre sort of way. It's all designed as like protection system, but it's from the days where we were, dealing with animals and killing us, and dealing with the threat of exile from tribes and all these sorts of things that we don't deal with in the modern world. But all of those old systems are still in there. And so that's why everything's so fucking difficult to navigate, because we've got all these old kind of redundant systems. It's like trying to run iOS 15 on an old like MS-DOS computer or something like that. It's just, yeah, it can't do it. So yeah, we need someone to come in and help us just re-engineer things a little bit.
I like what you said there too, like it's there to protect you because you're not feeling any guilt around when those shadows come up either, because they do serve a purpose because they are there to protect you. But it's once you become aware of them, it's your responsibility to then reverse engineer them to overcome them, to really find out where they came from and start
Yeah.
working through that. And I liked how you
Yeah, you
touched on
can
that.
even have conversations with them. It's weird. Yeah. Sort of as the adult to the childhood part, as it's called in some fields of psychology. You can even you genuinely have a conversation with them, and sometimes they might be really young, so you kind of have to act like a parent to them. It's fucking weird, but at the same time, like I'm sure everyone will have felt, oh yeah, I don't know why I act like that when that happens. I feel different. You feel different to your normal self, and that's because you're not being led by the self. You're being led at that moment by this, yeah, shadow or childhood part or whatever the terminology is. It's fascinating. It was fascinating to learn in therapy for me, and then I've gone on and spent, oh god, hundreds of hours studying and learning all about this and trying to learn the sort of more Eastern philosophy around it. A lot of it falls into very similar things, but it's funny to think people in a lot of cultures were talking about this kind of stuff thousands of years ago, and yet here we are in 2024, and in the Western world, still not really dealing with a lot of this stuff, and it's not spoken about at all. And I think a lot of it's not even considered real by people until they experience it and be like, ah, okay, there's something else going on here. It turns out these people who weren't distracted by phones and the internet and Xbox and everything all day, every single day, they had a lot more time to think about this sort of stuff and discuss philosophy and psyche and things. So yeah, they might have actually known what they were talking about a little bit.
Yeah, because when you hear about like the inner child stuff, for like, I guess majority of people probably think it's woo woo or sounds woo woo.
Mm,
Like once you actually go on the journey of doing that practice, like it's so empowering and so powerful. Just the amount you learn about yourself as well, like the self discovery and some of the needs that you didn't realize that you did need because your inner
mm,
child needed that when they was younger and never got it. So now you're trying to compensate by behaving in a certain way today, trying to make up for that. And it's like the life that you can start to live by beginning that journey is extraordinary. Like even when I first dived into breath work, I thought it was too woo woo for me because before I got into breath work and meditation, I thought it was just for a certain type of person. I realized that was a reflection within me that I was projecting onto that. And then, but if I never began that journey in the first place, I wouldn't have discovered all these certain shadows within myself that I could overcome, that could actually get me
mm.
onto a path that was more fulfilling because I started to become more aligned with who I truly was.
Completely. It's funny, like people used to speak about that kind of stuff were for the most part like woo woo hippies, crystals types of people. And so that was instantly off-putting to me. And then I feel like recently it's become like tech bros and people from San Francisco who are also similarly off-putting to me. And it's only recently where I found what quote unquote normal people, and this is all my own interpretations of people, everybody's normal, but yeah, people like yourself talking about it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, this is actually, I've only just discovered the breathwork stuff myself in the last, gosh, probably 6 weeks. Game changer, absolute like game changer. I didn't realize how much that I was holding my own breath for years, probably since I was a teenager, taking really shallow breaths, basically constantly in a state of fight or flight because of that. And yeah, I read that book Breath. I don't know if you've read it, from
Yeah, by
James
James.
Nestor,
Yeah.
and yeah, amazing. And started practicing some of the very simple exercises. Again, a lot of this stuff's quite easy. Like it was, I think, 4 weeks of therapy was game changing. 4 hours worth, literally once a week. Doesn't mean I'm sorted now, but the amount of time from zero to significant change in my life was really small. It's not like I needed to do the YouTube stuff, which did take 100 videos and all of these hundreds of hours. This stuff didn't take long at all to make a significant change. It's not necessarily fixed. Whether you can ever be fully fixed, I don't know. But the breath work, instant. Like the one where you breathe in through one nostril, hold, and then breathe out through the other nostril, literally instant game changer. I couldn't believe it. So how can something this simple not be spoken about and yeah, just not be. I don't know. How can it be? How can anything be this easy? It was more relaxing doing that than drinking any of the other stuff that I'd used to try and help myself relax over the years. And it was doable in 30 seconds just using my own nose. Mad. But again, like you say, in the Western world, a lot of this stuff is just looked down upon as, like you say, woo woo or, yeah, for hippies. And I definitely think I was brought up under under that kind of idea as well, that yeah, we're not that people who would do any of that sort of nonsense, and that's definitely imprinted on me. But yeah, the changes you can make in your life very quickly are wild.
Yeah, definitely. And very quickly too, because especially with breath work, it's free as well. So that's just another added bonus to it. And how
Definitely.
quickly you can get the positive impacts from it too is extremely good, because even a simple thing like road rage, just say someone cut you off, you're initially reactive, your nervous system gets jolted up, you're in fight, flight, or freeze, and you're just in this moment, maybe rage or anxiety or panic. But then if you start implementing that nose breathing that you're talking about, or if you start implementing 5 in, 5 out, just slowing down your breath, literally within 30 seconds to about 3 minutes, you can be in a calm state
Yeah,
rather than
wild.
having that
Yeah,
moment drag on for the rest of the day.
yeah, yeah, and then maybe affecting the next time you drive, and yeah, it's wild. I had it on. I don't like flying particularly. I'm not supposed to say that because that reinforces the anxiety, but it's true. I don't particularly like it, and so I was feeling uncomfortable on quite a long flight in the small seat a couple of months ago. Did the nose breathing, the single nostril thing. We should say is, in case people are watching and don't know what I'm talking about, you take a full breath in through one nostril while holding the other one, and close both. Hold it for a second, and then breathe out the other nostril all the way out, and then in through that same nostril. About, I think when you're starting to do it 18 times, and even just doing it just then, I feel calmer. It's bizarre. And on that flight, I was fine for the rest of the flight. Didn't realize until about 20 minutes later when I was like talking to the stewardesses who bring the food and stuff. I was like, oh, I feel fine. I just feel like I'm at home on a chair. Whereas before I was just, yeah, very in a very anxious state. So that's one of the easiest, simplest, and most pleasant things I've ever discovered. And I'm frustrated that it took me all of these years of anxiety to discover it. But I feel blessed that I happened to pick up that book on the day that I did as part of a 2-for-1 offer in the shop. I only bought it because I was buying a different book and it was just above it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that looks all right. I'll get that one too. But that was just one of those like synchronicity moments that you get in life sometimes that, yeah, game changer, complete game changer.
Yeah, because like it gets you out of that anxious state, it stops you forcing, you really become present in the moment. That's why I love breath
Mm.
work. And with the breathing as well, have you tried the nasal strips before? Ones that you put in your nose?
Yes, got a big box.
I,
Big box here, yeah. Every night when I sleep, and I've even started doing the mouth taping now as well, just because I didn't realize how much I was mouth breathing, and had like sleep apnea through holding my breath and mouth breathing. I've had a yeah, big change in how I'm feeling when I wake up in the morning, not feeling completely dead every morning now. So yeah, if it wasn't for Alex Hormozy making the nose strip during the day a thing, I would probably actually wear it more often during the day as well. But yeah, I don't want, I've already got a hat and everything. I don't want to people think that I'm copying him.
yeah, fair enough. I'm very curious around like quickly going back to being able to be a figure online and doing content creation. Do you find with yourself being in the position you're in and knowing that you've got two kids that are probably coming on the social media, you find you having the wisdom and experience that you've had by coping and dealing with some of the things that you have on social media has really helped you in connecting with your kids, but also really being able to share your wisdom with them and able to really cope with, I guess, some of the negative things you see in social media, or some of the things that you come across. Like, how was that really balancing your life?
Yeah, so I think it's been cool that I'm probably the only dad that knows who a lot of the creators that they watch are. Like, obviously, whether it's Mr. Beast or whoever it is. Now, there's plenty of the Minecraft YouTubers I didn't know who they are and whatever, but I kind of understand at least what is happening, even with the creators that I don't see. Oh, it's this type of video. This is what it is. So I think that's been useful, but I don't think the kids have ever known anything different, really. My eldest is nearly 13, but I've been on YouTube for 6 years, so basically as long as he can really remember, and then the youngest is the whole time that he can remember. In terms of some of the negative stuff, I don't think they're quite at that level where they're experiencing that yet. I had noticed with my youngest that he was watching a lot of Mr. Beast style videos, a lot of challenges, a lot of super fast edits, and there's creators out there who are massive that I don't really know who they are that have adopted his style, but it's even crazier. It's even more like Roblox sugary, da 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 da. And I think that I noticed it was actually starting to affect him a little bit too much. Like he was wanting to make challenges out of everything at home. So curved that one a little bit, had him on some, not you don't get to watch YouTube anymore and create some sort of huge trauma for him, but more, okay, we're going to watch some UK YouTubers for a while. So off the American crazy challenges for a little bit and just a slightly calmer, I'm going to say slightly calmer, it's still far too much for me to watch, but like a Dan TDM or something like that for a bit. Just just so his time on YouTube isn't quite so frantic. There's definitely a lot of franticness going on in young people's media at the moment. They play Roblox, which is not a game that existed when I was younger and is not a game that I would play now. It's just, to me, it's terrible. But again, a lot of that's very frantic. You've got to be, whichever the game it is within it, a lot of like gambling mechanics built in there that there's no money necessarily being involved, but a lot of flashing lights and dopamine hits and all these sorts of things. So I'm very mindful and aware of some of the tricks that are being used by creators, whether it's game developers or other creators to hack attention. And just I think banning those types of creations is not a good idea because it's just going to create resentment, still going to find their way to it anyway, and then it just becomes like forbidden fruit. But just curbing it a little bit, just some little things that we've implemented, like screens off an hour before bed, and just small things. Like I don't want to be too restrictive because realistically, this is the world that we live in now. I mean, we're talking on screens on something that's going to be on social media, but yeah, I think it probably helps that I'm a lot more aware of that world and how those videos are put together, particularly than any most other dads, and that's just purely because I'm in that world, right? So that helps. But yeah, my kids haven't started putting some stuff out there themselves yet. I think, to be honest, that my son still says he wants to be a YouTuber, but I think that because he's seen how much work it is to actually be a YouTuber, me in this room for many, many hours every single day, not that it's put him off, but I think that he understands the reality of it a bit more than all the kids that say they want to be a YouTuber, and then unfortunately they start, and the vast majority of them are like, oh my God, I can't just be a YouTuber by making a video and suddenly having millions of subscribers. This is extremely difficult and takes a lot of work, like anything worth doing. So I think that he sees that. So if he really wants to go down that path when he's a bit older, he will have the capabilities and the options to be able to do it, but also the understanding that it's not going to be easy. But I am wary of him suddenly being on YouTube if some people realize that he's my son, and some people are mad about an Eminem review I did or something and decide to you can't account for some dickheads in the world. So that's something that I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But yeah, we'll see what he wants to do.
Especially, I like how you touch on that, especially around how being a YouTuber is not easy. Because I feel like that's a big misconception by being a YouTuber, is that people think it's easy work, but it's not, because you got to plan content, you got to video the content, then you got to edit it, and then you got to do so many things in terms of just getting the video up there onto YouTube.
Yeah, it's why I think so many people are now making TikToks as opposed to YouTube, because it is much easier to make a very basic level TikTok with your phone. But even then, like if you want to really blow up those TikToks, that involves a lot of planning, production, editing in a similar sort of way. But yeah, it's not easy. It's easier than it's ever been to be able to get your message out there, your voice out there, your face out there, to be able to create a business around your message. It's amazing, but there's no doubt that it is yeah, a lot of work, and you're on your own, especially at the beginning. You got to do it all. So um, yeah, that's why the vast majority of people will stop, because it's a hell of a lot of work, and it's only the people that really really believe in what they're talking about, or the idea. I don't even think it's the idea of being a YouTuber. They just really want to make they want to get that message out there. I'm still trying to dive into the psychology of what it is, because it's very much my own psychology. Like, why was it when I was a teenager that I just wanted to write for gaming magazines so much? I don't know, because at 13, 14, you're not really thinking about the reality of work. Like, okay, that sounded way more fun than being at school all day, to be writing for a games magazine, but I didn't understand what actually went into it. And I don't know, but kids want to get their message out there. They want to talk about the stuff that they're passionate about, and I don't think that stops. There's a reason, the meme of every dad who's in their 40s suddenly starting a podcast, because people want to get their message. They just want to do it. I don't quite know what it is yet. I haven't figured it out, the psychology of it, but it's definitely real. By the way, anyone who is a dad and is that age and wants to start a podcast, start your podcast. Fuck all those people that say don't do it because they're looking down on you or it's cringe or whatever. Fucking hell. Get your message out there. Get some creativity back in your life. If you've been doing a boring job for 20 years and you've got the stresses of money and family and all this sort of stuff, do your damn podcast, man. You never know, it might blow up. So yeah, shout out to all those the dads that are thinking about starting a podcast. I hate that meme where people look down on people for doing that sort of stuff. But it's true. Despite it is true though. I can't remember the question now. I've just gone off on one.
It's just about YouTube and the amount of work it actually takes to put into it to
Oh yeah, it's a lot
yeah,
of
it's
work.
get, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, do you think like understanding yourself more along the years and going into your own psyche, is that what really motivated you or created the purpose and passion behind starting your new channel around personal development?
Yeah. So in the last, I mean, kind of always, I've always been fascinated by psychology, and I've always said to like my wife, I was like, if I never did what I've done for a career, I think the other career I'd have chosen was being like a psychologist or a therapist. I've always found it interesting. I've always found how the brain works fascinating. But back when I was a teenager and a young adult, the resources just weren't the same to learn about that sort of stuff. Like, obviously, you do it at school, maybe an A level as like the final 2 years of high school, as you'd know, but people might not who's listening. And then you do a degree in it, fine, but it's not like now where you can find all the resources online. There's loads of people talking about these sorts of things on YouTube. And even with AI now, I will ask ChatGPT questions about psychology and then run this through a Jungian framework, run this through a Freudian framework. Incredible. And so the amount that I've learned from having conversations with ChatGPT about it is probably more than anything I could have learned beforehand, apart from my own experience of being in it. And then there's genuinely amazing creators and podcasters in talking about this stuff now, whether it's Stephen Bartlett or Chris Williamson or a bunch of other people having psychologists, coaches, amazing thinkers, the philosophers, amazing people on, and the amount that you can learn from that. And then there's people who kind of amalgamate that with business or amalgamate that with content or amalgamate that with sports or whatever it is, other things that I'm interested in. So the amount that I can be in that space just as a consumer is incredible now. And it's what I think about a lot. Like I like teaching, I like coaching, I coach jiu-jitsu outside of all this YouTube stuff. And yeah, I would wake up most days doing presentations to imaginary audiences about how to become a YouTuber, about how to improve this element of jiu-jitsu, about how to, I don't know, help with feeling overwhelmed. This is just what I do around the house in my brain all the time, while also trying to help myself and dealing with my own shit. And so it got to the point where that's actually currently what I'm really aligned with. Sorry, a fly's just flown in the room. That's actually what I'm aligned with day to day. And so speaking to my audience already, a lot of them are really struggling with purpose, with procrastination, with dealing with being addicted to TikTok and those apps. And so I wanted to move into that space. but also a lot of the people that I speak to who are older that aren't in my audience, but I speak to at jiu-jitsu, or if I'm speaking to people on the school run, or who are in their 30s and even 40s, who are struggling with similar sort of issues, not so much addicted to the apps, but struggling with purpose, struggling with a bunch of unresolved trauma they don't even know about, all these sorts of things. And it just made sense to me to start trying to make content in and around that I would know that would have helped me had I watched it. It helps me to write and compartmentalize my ideas and my thoughts. And then, even though I've only done one video on that channel, when I put it out, I felt really aligned and it was really resonant. I knew that thing that I put out, whether it got 10 views or 10,000, if people watched it, they would get something out of it. It would help. And I don't get that feeling when I put out my music videos, even though people tell me that they help. So people say, oh, I've watched this weekend reaction video 100 times. I watch it whenever, I've had a bad day or I just need some comfort. And that's wonderful. It's amazing. And I've used a lot of people's content like that myself over the years. But my intention when I put out one of those videos is not to help, it's to entertain. Whereas with this new stuff, it is genuinely to help. And I feel like as I enter my 40s, we're getting stuck in now. But this just feels like the path for this chapter of my life that makes the most sense and feels most aligned to who I really am and what I want to be discussing, and just even having conversations like this. This is what I'm thinking about all day, really. And I just think that there's a need for it in the world. There's a lot of people already doing amazing work, but I might be able to lean a little bit more in towards that, personal development plus creation, whether it's YouTube, whether it's writing, just based on my own work experiences as well. And like I said, there's not currently enough support structures for people in this space, whether they're starting at a new level, just starting out, or whether they've actually been in it for a long time and they've managed to build an audience, whether that's an audience of 1,000 people or 10 million people. It's still suddenly a very strange thing that you're dealing with, and the feedback and the cycle and the workload. So I feel like after being in it for so long, I'll continue to do it, but I'm also very interested in helping other people sort of navigate that world. And that when I do that stuff, it feels, like I say, very aligned. It feels right, and I trust that feeling quite a lot.
And that comes back to before when you talk about authenticity as well. You can actually see it when you speak later, and actually see you lighten up talking about it. And it's really good to see someone with a platform starting a whole new channel around being able to help people and sharing your own wisdom and experience. And as someone like myself who's a fan of yours, it's really good to see the journey you're on and these next steps you're taking, and going along into the future. I'm really keen to see what this evolves into.
No, I appreciate that, man. That was, mate, that's very nice of you to say. So thank you.
No worries at all. But John, I appreciate you coming on the One Talk podcast. I'd like to give you the opportunity before we finish. Maybe there's a message you want to share to the people. Maybe there's something you want to promote, whatever it is. I just want to give you the opportunity to share your final thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, you can find me, just Google my name, or it's just Jon Denton on YouTube, or on Twitter or X. You can find me on there quite easily if you'd like to. But honestly, if you find yourself, like we spoke about earlier in the podcast, if you find yourself getting triggered or getting stressed by certain things repeatedly, and you manage to notice it, that is it's almost like a gift from the universe, as uncomfortable and as painful as it is at the moment, and how it can genuinely affect your relationships or affect your life, affect your happiness. If you can reframe it as a gift from the universe to be able to find something else, find something out about yourself, and whether you figure it out on your own through meditation and really spending some time away from the phone, away from content, away from everything, almost just like facing a wall, as a healthy gamer would say, for half an hour, and really focusing on what that is and seeing if you can dive into it, as uncomfortable as that might be. Or I definitely recommend spending some time with a therapist, getting into that stuff. It's like a gift from the universe to be able to get onto a path of healing, so you don't have to deal with that anymore, and you can figure out what it is, where it came from, learn about yourself, and then move forward without that holding you back anymore. That part of you will still be there, but you can get a much better relationship with that part of yourself that's only trying to help, it's just trying to protect you, but has got it all wrong because it's acting with probably a child's mind and a child's logic. And yeah, being able to speak to that, release it, and work with that part of yourself to work in harmony towards moving forward is a blessing when you can make it work and you don't have to be held back by those limiting beliefs or those triggers or whatever it is anymore. And it's a nice freeing feeling.
Amen, brother. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure, mate. Enjoyed it.